The Computer Science GCSE is one that has replaced the ICT GCSE of old, where that GCSE saw the students learning how to use different software packages such as Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint. The Computer Science GCSE is a much more technical, in-depth look at the internal workings of computers. At Anglo-European School, we have selected OCR as the exam board for our Computer Science GCSE. The OCR spec has two components to it. Number one is computer systems. Number two is computational thinking, algorithms, and programming. For computer systems, students will learn how these machines work. Inside, they will look at the different hardware components, how they process and move data around. We move on to the internet and how machines can send data across the internet using specific protocols, and then we look at the effect of computers on modern society. We look at various ethical and legal issues that have really only cropped up in the last few decades because of these machines and the internet. For computational thinking, algorithms and programming, students will learn the theory of coding computer programs. Also, they will complete a fair amount of practical programming. For assessment, the OCR GCSE features two final exams at the end of the course. There is no practical coding element. The first paper is 90 minutes long and worth 80 marks, as is the second paper. They are split into the two sections, computer science and then computational thinking, algorithms and programming. When contemplating as to whether or not you should take the Computer Science GCSE, the most important thing to think about is, what are your motives for choosing this subject? Is it that your friends are choosing it, or is it that you think that we're going to be making a lot of games? Because really we're not. The coding we do is challenging. Even though there is no final formal assessment based on practical coding ability, nor is there any coursework, in the second paper they do expect you to be able to write programs out by hand. Because of that, we do a lot of practical coding. So if you've struggled with those elements or really not enjoyed them over the course of year 9, I would think very, very long and hard about whether or not this subject is for you. The best descriptor that we have for someone doing well in this GCSE is passion for technology and general enjoyment of the subject in programming. That's the best thing. I would always take a student who is passionate and maybe isn't as able as another student. I may be biased, but I personally believe that this is one of the hardest subjects you can take. There are 3 strands of learning that you really need to master here. The general knowledge, being able to memorize definitions and meanings and succinctly explain them for 2 or 3 mark exam questions. We have the long form writing, where you will need to discuss a serious social or ethical issue and balance out both sides of the argument. And then finally, the cognitive and logical elements of sequencing and programming in order to make sure that everything's done in the right order so the task can be completed. That being said, it's a fascinating GCSE. It's so interesting to find out how these machines really impact our everyday lives and how we can actually ourselves begin to marshal them to get them to do exactly what it is that we want.